Welcome everybody, those who are present in the committee rooms and also those who are watching by video. This is a meeting of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee, divided into two sections. First of all, the Licensing Committee and then the Public Protection Committee. First of all, apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Heeson, Councillor Andy Parker, Councillor Wilkes, Skelding and White, and substitutes this evening are Councillors John Tagg and Councillor David Hutchison. That goes to item 1. Item 2 on the agenda of the Licensing Committee deals with declarations of interest in relation to licensing matters. Are there any? No? Item 3, which involves pages 3 to 6 in your agenda pack, is minutes of the previous meeting. Has everyone agreed that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Williams. Minutes agreed. Item 4 on the Licensing Committee agenda is the Payment Licensing Levying Up and Regeneration Act, which is on pages 7 to 14 of your agenda pack. And if I can just hand over to Matt to give a summary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. This report deals with the payment licensing regime. The committee have had several reports of this over the past few years. It started off as a temporary measure in the pandemic to allow premises to have tables and chairs outside and services outside, but they couldn't have customers inside. What's happened now is the government, through the Levying and Regeneration Act, made the regime permanent. They have made a few changes which are detailed in a table at 1.4 of the report, which I'll run through. Previously, under the temporary restrictions, the licence length was maximum of 1 year. The new provisions are going to be a maximum of 2 years, and they should be 2 years unless there's a good reason not to. In terms of fees, you'll remember previously the range was between £0 and £100, and previously the committee agreed that we wouldn't be charging at that time to encourage the businesses and help businesses. The new provisions are that it's a new application that is now ranging between £0 and £500, and for renewals it's between £0 and £350. And there is a proposal and recommendation on some fees which will bring to your attention in the moment. In terms of renewals, under the temporary provision, there was no renewal process. It was just you would issue another licence for a technical point, really. And in the new provision, there is a specific renewal provision within there that allows a licence to be renewed as opposed to just having a new one granted each time. The old provisions were quite short in terms of consultation and determination. So there used to be a very short consultation period for the statutory consultees, which was Police and Highways Authority, and for members of the public, which was 7 days. And then after that, the council then has 7 days to determine the application itself. They've both been extended to 14 days, so moving from a 14-day total to a 28-day total, which was a lot of local authorities that asked for during the consultation in relation to this, to give us enough time to properly consider those applications that are coming in. In the original temporary provisions, payment licences or areas that were granting a payment licence were included as an exemption under the Space Protection Order, and under the new provisions they have done. I think it was an oversight from the temporary provisions. Effectively, all that means is you'll be aware of the Space Protection Order in the town centre. One of the conditions on there is prohibition of drinking alcohol. But what had happened or could have happened is that police or authorised officer could have asked someone who was legitimately having a drink in a pavement licence area to stop drinking. It wasn't recognised at that stage when the act came out, so that's been included now, so that wouldn't happen. And again, that's a result of consultation. And in terms of enforcement, it has strengthened the enforcement and sort of compliance capabilities of the local authority. in terms of what they were. So previously, there were provisions for revocation and serving of notices. They're still there. We now also have the facility to remove furniture, store it, and cover any costs incurred in relation to that, and dispose of it if we need to. There's also an additional provision which allows us to amend a licence in prescribed circumstances instead of revoking it. So that might be that suddenly an area where the licence to be granted is no longer suitable because there needs to be some statutory undertaking, some drainage or pipes or whatever lay there, and we can agree to change it without revoking it and making them go through a process of applying for a new one. We currently have 12 vacant licences across the borough. They're actually all in the town centre at the moment. We have had several in Southampton, in Southampton previously. They're not there anymore, so just the ones in the town centre. So in terms of what we're going to be asking you for the recommendation, the first one is to just note the contents of the report that is moving from a temporary to a permanent regime, and that has happened already. Second one is to agree to proposed amended standard conditions for licences. There were meant to be track changes to Appendix 1. Unfortunately, when it's published as PDF, it hasn't showed the amendments. But in Appendix 1, that is the proposed new ones, not the old ones. And I can go through any changes if you'd like me to. The third recommendation is to agree to proposed fees, which I'll come on to next. And the fourth is to agree to proposed standard licence period. So that would be to make it a 2-year maximum as the norm, but shorten it if there was the reason to on an individual application. So the coming to the fees, the 2.3 of the report, we lay down what we are expecting, or what we're proposing, in terms of fees. We're proposing a £216 fee for new applications and £158 for any renewal applications. We've done that on the basis of cost recovery. We can't make profit from it, same as anything else that we do. And that would be for a 2-year licence, not a 1-year licence. Excuse me. So that is it really. Unless anyone has any questions, that's the recommendation to move. Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask as part of the report? Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you. No, I support this. I think the when it first came in during COVID, I think I've said this before a number of times. On a sunny summer's day, looking at the iron market, that'd be outside and a drink, having something to eat is absolutely delightful. And I think it's something that we should encourage. Nobody wants to charge money for anything, but it's a cost recovery system. We're not going to make any money out of this. We're certainly going to get the money back that we get for the work that we're doing. I also believe it's a great deal less than many other local authorities around the area, and the fact it's for 2 years as well, I think is also to its credit. I'm very, very happy to support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Are there any other comments that councillors would like to make or questions? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I agree with the makes the town more lively, within the town, say cafes, to inside the pubs, really adds to the vibrancy of the town. So I agree with that. On the point of the fees, I mean, we haven't got business haven't got back to normal as pre-COVID. So could you just repeat the costings for the licensees? Thank you.
Matt, could you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. So we're proposing that the fee for a new application is £216. The legislation allows it to be somewhere between nothing and 500, so below the minimum. And for renewals, the legislation says between 0 to 350. We're proposing 158, which again is below sort of 50% of what we're allowed to charge. We've worked it out on a cost recovery basis in terms of how long it takes to complete an application, give advice, draft the compliance visits, check notices. We think that what we're proposing is quite reasonable in terms of the costings. And as Councillor Sweeney has pointed out, there are other local authorities who are looking to charge more than we are. So on a cost recovery basis, I think it's reasonable. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Hutchinson.
And thanks for the report, Mark. Can I just double check for clarity? A new application would pay 216. Is that for a 2-year period or for a 1-year period? And then 158 again, is that for a 2-year period? So a new person would pay 216 for years 1 and 2 and 158 for year 3 and 4. Am I reading that correctly or not? Thanks.
Yes, you are. That's on the assumption that members move that the licence period is for 2 years. So currently we can only issue up to a maximum of 1 year. It's up to members today to decide the maximum term up to a period of 2 years, but if the legislation and guidance states that should be the norm and only issue for a lower period or a lesser period if there's specific individual reasons not to.
Thanks, Mark.
Any other questions or comments from councillors? So can I take it that the recommendations, items 1, 2, 3 and 4 on page 7 of agenda item 4 are approved? And show of hands, please. Thank you very much. If we now move to the section on the Public Protection Committee, which are items 5, 6, 7 and 8 of your agenda sheet. Item 5, any declarations of interest in relation to public protection matters? Item 6 is the taxi tariffs proposed increase. Matt, if I could ask you to summarise the report on this, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to consider a proposal from the Hackney Carriage Trade Association to increase the fares which are charged through the meters within the Hackney carriages in the Borough area. It's been 5 years since we had the last one of these, so I'll take you through it a bit more. Those who might not be familiar with sort of the process. The trade can make a proposal or request at any time that the Hackney carriage fares are amended or increased. As I say, the last one happened in 2019. After what happens tonight, if there is an agreement or proposed amendments, the fares then have to be consulted on, published and consulted on for a period of 14 days. After that, if there were any objections, then we could take those into account. If there weren't, then we would have a date set where those fares would come into force. Taking you through the report, the current fares that we have, you can find a copy of Appendix A of the report there. Appendix B and C, you'll note some minutes from some previous committee meetings, one in 2015 and one in 2019. And this is where the Hackney Carriage Trade Association had requested that the initial tariff time when it changed from tariff 1, which is the normal rate, to the second rate, the higher rate. They've asked previously that it comes forward to 10 PM rather than stay at midnight. On both occasions so far, the committee rejected that request, but you'll see from the contents of the report that the Trade Association made the same request as part of their request today. You'll see at section 2.1, there's a description as to what the reasoning behind the proposal or the request was. The full request email is found in Appendix D of the report, but it's essentially around the increased costs around sort of cost of living and everything. So the cost of fuel, insurance premiums, vehicle maintenance, and the cost of replacement vehicles have all increased. And also the fact it's been 5 years since the last training was done. It does also include the explanation as to why the trade are proposing that tariff 2 time should start at 10 o'clock rather than midnight. So in 2023, the Trade Association submitted a proposed table of fares. There's been a bit of back and forth between licensing and the Hackney Carriage Association. And what you can see as Appendix E now is the proposal that's being put forward to you this evening. A bit of context, at table, so in Appendix F, there is a printout of a magazine article, which is Private Hire and Taxi Monthly. Every single month, they list all of the happy carriage fares for the entire country. It's like a ranking table. As it stands, we rank 328th out of 344. So reasonably near the bottom. We put Stoke as a comparison. They are going to be 313th out of 334. And if the proposal that has been put forward this evening was accepted, that would move us to 184 out of 344. There's a table at 2.4 in the report which outlines the current rates as what they are for tariff 1 for 1 mile, 2 mile, and tariff 2 for 1 mile, 2 mile. The same for Stoke, and then what it would be if the proposed fares were agreed this evening. Just at the bottom of the table is the proposed percentage increase. So just to recap, the 2.5, the changes that are being put forward are to increase the flag fares, that's the starting amount, as soon as you can turn the meter on in third grade for each tariff. To increase the additional distance charge on each tariff. Amend the start time on tariff to midnight to 10 PM. Increase the soiling charge fee, and then to contain some notes at the bottom of the fare sheet for customers that explain when the meter should be used and when drivers can use their discretion and agree fares with the customers. So the recommendations for you tonight are 3.1. The first one is those part items which gone through. The first one is to approve or amend the proposed flag fares. Second one is to approve or amend the proposed additional distance charges. The third one is to approve or amend the proposed start time for tariff 2. Fourth one is to approve or amend the proposed soiling charge. And the fifth one is to approve or amend the additional notes on the tariff sheet. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Do any of the councillors have any questions or comments that they'd like to make to do with the report? Councillor Williams.
I have great sympathy with the taxi drivers. Don't get me wrong. But if you're a shift worker and we start one of these tariffs, they're actually going to be another £5 if you're in the army. I mean, no, I can understand the night time economy because, you know, pubs are not opening this late and we're not, the town's not as busy in that way. But if you're a shift worker, and you finish at 11 o'clock or even 12 o'clock, which some of my neighbours actually do, and you use the taxi both ways, you spend out another £5 a shift to your money, if you know what I mean. So some of these people could be 25, 30 pounds a week worse actually. I do have sympathy, don't get me wrong, with the taxi drivers, and I do believe they should have an increase, but I think this is just a little bit too much.
Matt, would you like to make comments on that? And can I add a question to it at the moment? In that if they're changing the time from midnight to 10, in line with Councillor Williams, when does the tariff start? Early morning, the change?
I'll take the order. In relation to the shift works for certain times, something else that we need to bear in mind when we are thinking about the fares is the private hire community, the fares that they charge. They're not regulated whatsoever. There's no legal provision for that to happen. The council have no control over it, so it's free market essentially. We've seen the private hire fares have gone up over the past few years, which perfectly entitled to do. So it depends very much on the consumer and what sort of taxi they want to use. So they can choose private hire and go between whichever company and shop around if you like. But if their option is a hackney carriage, and if the journey is between the Newcastle address and another Newcastle address, it would be whatever the driver is. The drivers could charge less, but what would happen on the meter would be the maximum charge that they could charge. So it's partially consumer choice of which one they use, but yes, it would mean an increase on those charges. Yeah. I'll just move to the appendix so I can tell you the answer to the second one. On our current fares, the starting time for tariff 1 is 6 o'clock. So tariff 2 is in place from midnight until 6 a.m. If or looking at the proposals for the appendix E, it would change. It'd still be 6 a.m. in the morning, but it would start 2 hours earlier at 10 p.m. There'd be a larger window where it'd be tariff 2. And I didn't really elaborate on this at the time, but the explanation that the Trade Association have given is that it's in line with many of our neighbouring authorities at 10 p.m, including Stoke. So it's different here than it is to other taxis and other local areas around the borough.
Any other questions or commentary from councillors? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I first looked at the percentage increases, which are all at least double inflation, even when it was as high as 10%, I did share the concerns of my fellow councillor, Councillor Williams. But the comment I'd like to make is, having heard all the other information about where we are in the league table of charges, and the fact that there hasn't been any increase in 5 years, and the other points that have been made, I think that maybe that is a fair assessment. The only concern I would throw in is the fact that we're living in times with quite unreliable bus services and not very good connectivity of public transport, particularly if you're going out into the more semi-rural wards, of which I live myself. So I think there is a balance to be struck, because we don't want people to be completely marooned and not able to go to employment or training that, you know, would benefit themselves and the economy. So I do think it's quite a difficult balance to strike. And as I say, when I first saw the percentage increases, I was a bit concerned. But I think on balance, hearing everything else, I would be minded to support the proposals.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on that, Matthew?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, if you look through the table from the national table, and if you're fortunate enough to look at it more frequently like I do, you'll see that the local authorities change and have these conversations every year or every 2 years. So those proposals are happening more often and more regularly than we've had. So whilst we had a request in last year, there was some back and forth between us to make sure that what we were putting forward we thought was a reasonable request to yourselves. So grateful for your comments. Thank you.
Any other queries or comments? Councillor Egbert.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with some of the comments that the councillors have made. I mean, if you look at some of the costs involved over the last 5 years that have gone up, car insurance in the last year, especially, I can see why there's a case for an increase. The bit that concerns me a little bit is the amending of the tariff 2 times from 10 to midnight, because I know the last 2 times it's come up before this committee in the last 10 years, it's been rejected. I just wondered if there could be a bit more background given on the debate that was held there and why we've resisted changing that. It's because the impact on a nighttime economy. I wondered if Matt could just give us a bit more background on the conversations that have taken place around that tariff 2 change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egbert. Matt, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I wasn't around in 2015, so I'm very much reliant on the minutes for this. I think it's very similar to the comments that Councillor Williams has already made in terms of the consumers. That although the nighttime economy has changed quite a lot over the past few years, certainly 2015, 2019, there was more of a bus and nighttime economy, and it was thought to be fair to consumers to have it at midnight rather than earlier on. I don't think we've looked really previously at other local authorities and what they have. I can't confirm what any other local authority has locally other than Stoke, which I know is 10 p.m. I've really got much more to go on than what you've got in terms of the minutes and the proposal for you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hutchinson.
Two questions, Mark, if that's okay. When you say Stoke is 10 p.m, so if you get a taxi in Newcastle but it's a Stoke licensed taxi, no, that won't apply to 10 p.m.
Okay, so it is in with the report, and it's a bit convoluted in terms of what the law allows because of how old the legislation is. But the Hackney carriages are meters. So if you come to a Hackney carriage here and you want to go to Clayton or Ossie, Football Stanton or wherever, the maximum you could be charged is what's on the meter. If you wanted to go from here, if you wanted to go to Stoke Station, then there's an opportunity for the driver before the journey commences to agree an alternative fare. They may run the meter as well to show what it is, but here's Stoke Station might be, let's say, £12 on a meter. If they agree in advance with the customer who's over £20, that's the contract, that's the fare. For Stoke, it's only, or for any borough, they're only stuck to what the meter charges when they're making a journey that starts and ends in their borough. So you go from Stoke Station to Hanley, they have to use their Stoke rates at whatever time it was. If they came from Stoke Station to Newcastle, same thing applies. The driver could agree with the customer to say it's going to be X amount. That would be what they have to pay at the end of the journey.
Thanks, Mark. Can I just ask one more question regarding the silent charge? I think it's currently 60 and we want to put it up to 80. Just if a driver takes 2 or 3 people who have obviously had a lot to drink, does he have to tell them if they make a mess in the taxi, whether it be being sick or weeing, they'll have to pay a charge? Or can it just displayed in the taxi, or does it have to be agreed before the journey commences? I appreciate the charge because the taxi would have to come off the road and be balloted. I'm just curious to know, does it have to be agreed before the journey commences? Thanks.
No, it doesn't have to be agreed before the journey commences. It will be set down as a maximum fee that could be charged if members, with whatever members agree to get consultation. It's actually a difficult conversation then for taxi drivers to have with the customer if they've been sick or something else in the car, then to try and recover that money. I know from speaking to several of the trade that the £80 wouldn't cover a proper value to cover it, to cover the cleaning of the vehicle, but that's why there's a request for an increase to try and recoup some of those costs that they're doing. Because it's not just the cleaning fee, obviously they're not off the road, they're not earning. So yeah, it comes down to a very difficult conversation between the driver and the customer.
My only additional comment on that would be that most taxis that I've been in actually has a sign somewhere within the taxi that says any excessive fouling will need to be paid for. So they warn people, and it becomes almost contractual with how they're able to take you somewhere. Councillor Sweeney.
I think I was on this committee 5 years ago when we discussed this, and I can remember the 12 down to 10 was some point to some discussion. And I think somebody, it might be me, I know, said, what about 11 o'clock? So we meet them halfway, I mean 12 down to 11. That's just slightly here, but everybody's interested in that.
Would you like to come back?
Yeah, so the recommendation is to agree or amend the proposal. So if there was support for that as opposed to 10 or 12, that would be perfectly viable. Again, that was beautiful to members of the committee this evening. The only bit we go out in consultation is the actual costs and the fares that we charge.
Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor.
Yeah, I think I support something along that line. I think I would support the proposals, but I would amend that tariff 2 times to 11 o'clock. That's, I think, something we all perhaps discuss.
I think that's,
Councillor Williams, did you want to?
no, I was just going to say that I will second the 11 o'clock. I think that's not way, which will appease a lot of people. Not still upset a lot of people, but we will appease quite a few people.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the last time we talked about balloting, I think it's £50. Once in, like you correctly say, in the taxis, there's a sign where that charge is it for anybody stores the taxi. In the Staffordshire, we're a low wage economy. And the cost of, I think the taxi do a fantastic job. First of inventions, the pushing of the bus services. The bus service to follow away, we all know, and it's all issues, and take an example, Wood Lane, Scott A. After 5 o'clock at night, there's no public transport. And if people live up there, they want to come in the zone, it's really expensive. So, could the officer, could Matt make the point? I've got to screen through the list here, point taken, and he takes all of the areas throughout the country, some more prosperous than others. Can they just again repeat on the city? So it's £6, and then another comparison. What were you going to charge? Just do those figures again, please.
Could you give us those figures again, Matt?
Absolutely. There's a table at 2.4 of the report which has got it. Yep. So currently, as I say, we're 328 out of 344. The sheet that you have, the appendix which has the table, is based on the 2 mile rate for tariff 1, so like the lowest tariff. But as it stands, for that rate, we would be would pay £5.55 in Newcastle. As it stands, they would pay £5.90 in Stoke. If we agreed to if you agreed to proposals this evening, it would be £6.90 for that rate.
The city,
£5.90 currently. They must have amended their fares in 2022.
and are they likely to put theirs up?
It's reliant on the trade making that request. I'm not aware of their trade body. It's separate and different to the one that's here in Newcastle. So it would be incumbent on them to make that request to the city council, then them to consider it and come to their decision.
I'm sure, Chair, if we could have it up, they will see the policies.
The only additional comment I would make is taking account of what all the councillors have said, the commentary and the questions, is that the last time we reviewed the costings was in 2019. Stoke reviewed theirs in 2022, so they're a little bit ahead of the pack in that we've been dragging our feet in raising any fees for some years before that this was discussed. I would also say that, and this is my comment, not as chair but as a councillor, in that as well as that we have to take on board the fact that we need to compare ourselves with other borough councillors and make sure that there's some sort of equality across not just the fees that are charged, but looking at, like Councillor Williams said, how prosperous a particular borough council is. Those are my only comments that I would make. Are there any other questions or comments from councillors? Perhaps, does anybody want to take a vote on whether it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock or midnight? Which is a recommendation taken out of the general recommendations. Councillor Sweeney,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move 11 o'clock, please.
anyone second that?
I'll second.
Perhaps we could have a vote then, please, moving to 11 o'clock instead of 10. And perhaps the officer can take that on board. Is everyone happy to vote in favour of all the other recommendations? Could we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. So item 7 on, sorry. Item 7 on the agenda is the amendment to taxi licensing policy provisions relating to tinted windows. Matt, could you give us a summary of the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I start, I'm going to introduce Andy Cotton, the Transport Manager of the Borough Council. You may or may not know him already. He's here for some assistance with the testing of it, and any comments and sort of questions you might have for him. You'll remember, councillors, that we brought this provisional policy provision to you in December committee. The original proposal of the officers was in our taxi licensing policy from all any carrier and cyber hire vehicles being required to have their rear windows transmit a minimum of 35% light through them. The request and recommendation was that we move in line with some of the local authorities to allow any manufactured fitted windows regardless of the level of tint. Council at the meeting were supportive, I think, of looking more at the manufactured fitted tinted windows, because it was very rare that a lot of vehicles or new vehicles now have those as standards, and our policy was actually making it quite hard and detrimental to trade to put newer vehicles on. But also members wanted us to revisit the potential for a different percentage limit as opposed to just allowing any vehicle with a level of manufactured tint. So we brought it back before you today, and in terms of the recommendation, we've added a second one. So we're retaining our original recommendation that could be any vehicle that has factory fitted tinted or crisp windows without aftermarket tinting. That was our original one. Or the newer one, which we put into place as a proposal for you tonight, is instead of it being a 35% transmission of light with a 2% tolerance, it will be 18% transmission of light, 2% tolerance. Described you in December, the background in terms of how the policy came into force and why it's been there. Historically, it's been thought to be a public safety issue, and the Department of Transport very recently stated that they don't think that tinted windows are a public safety issue, but it is still for the authorities to decide what they have in their taxi licensing policy in respect of this. So what we've done since December is we reviewed all of the vehicles up until the time of writing the report that failed the taxi test, that have either been purely or primarily just because the windows were too dark. So there's a table at 2.2 of the report. There were 17 vehicles that failed up until we wrote the report, and there was another 2 that failed on Friday, which Andrew will be able to give you some updates on. You'll see from there that 9 out of the 17 would fit at 20% light transmission requirements. A further 6 allow 16 to 18, so would fall into the recommendation that we're proposing today. And there was only 1 that was completely out of what our proposal is today, which is 10%. There was 1 that was unknown. The reason why it was taken was that the vehicle was being put forward as an executive chauffeur type vehicle, which we sometimes depart on the policy guidelines for those and for the type of work that they undertake. We did try to obtain window specifications from various models and various ranges from the main manufacturers. So we're looking primarily at sort of the Toyota and the Hyundai, who do most of the hybrid vehicles we have on the fleet. You can't find specifications anywhere. They're not available online. They're contacted couple of the dealers who either didn't comply or weren't available to sort of assist in the inquiries that we were making. So that's how we've approached the problem. And just looked at what sort of vehicles we're getting in and what we're failing. As Appendix 1, there's a list of photos, taken by Andy and the team who have been testing vehicles. So you'll see in Appendix 1, the first photo is a vehicle that has a lifetime vision of 23%. And you can quite clearly see one of the testers that comes from the car and all the way through. The second photo is 20%, and again, there's visibility all the way through the windows of the vehicle. The third one is 25%, which is obviously allows more through, so you see more there. And the last one is 72%, which is what you'd expect to be able to see through the front windscreen and the side front door as well. And he did provide me with a photo on Friday, one that is 2%, so very, very dark. Unfortunately, I haven't made it into the agenda. If anyone does want to see it, I can show it to you. You can't see it. So that is what I would probably talk about when we talk about blacked out and privacy glass last time. So it's that very sort of single percentage that would fit that criteria. Okay, so the recommendations we've left a normal. So there's the original recommendation in relation to allowing vehicles, providing any tint is factory fitted, manufacturer fitted, no aftermarket tinting, no filming. Or the new proposal we're putting forward as an alternative would be to allow for 18% transmission of lights with a 2% tolerance. If anyone has any questions from me or Andy, would be was there something you want to say?
Apologies if you see me on photos, very often to take a photo of the window. It's like one thing I will say
Yes.
is cars that we're getting through now tend to be hybrid and electric cars, which is part of what the borough wants. We spent a lot of months sourcing electric vehicles for the borough. We've got to go to the green side. It seems as part of how things are looking now with buying cars electrically. You probably heard in electric vehicles, you heat the driver, not the car. Part of that also is a reversal in the sun. Tend to find the vehicles that have got tinted windows to try to keep cars cool. So you've got to use air conditioning less. The ones that have got blacked out windows, we do get some cars coming through that have obviously spent 3 years in Japan. The UK time spent cars European coming, they have got blacked out windows. Then when we take the cellophane off, they then go to 25%, which is Toyota standard factory fit. So we have got a lot of people putting a lot of money into the vehicles, and it's a major expense. It's a major expense to change the windows. Sometimes they're not even available, so they have to go into the aftermarket world, which to take that as face value, we don't know what the specifications are. You know, to get Toyota windows does cost probably £1,000. And just paid £30,000 for a car. Does put a big cost on it. And council looked and said they'd come down and showing the workings.
Yeah, I did some testing of the windows myself. It was good fun. Thank you, Andy.
Any councillors have any comments or questions? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, it's clear this needs to change policy because we can't keep failing vehicles, the newer vehicles that we want to say that are more fuel efficient and hybrids, because the trend is towards tinted windows. So it's clear this does have to change. We have to become a bit more tolerant on this kind of thing. I've got a really simple question for you. How do you know the difference between a factory fitted and aftermarket tint? Just because it's film, or can you get windows that have been replaced in tint? And how do you know the difference?
You'll normally find by the measurement, these that have got the film on, the 2%. As soon as somebody puts the film on the window, that's the blacked out window. The factory fit window, you can always see through it. You know, you can, with the photographs, I'm not seeing any factory fed windows below 20%.
Any other comments or questions from councillors? Councillor
I mean,
Williams at the front.
not really. I'll keep your finger on. I know I did start, I think that I did have strong objections, I will be quite honest with you. I can live with the fact that the factory fitties, and I understand all the reasons why.
Thank you, Mike's come up.
But it isn't working.
Sorry.
So I can understand the factory
Councillor Williams,
fitties, and I can go.
you try again with your mic?
What's that
Oh,
working?
yeah.
I can understand, can't everybody hear me? I'm sure everybody can hear me.
I think it's for the.
So video.
I can understand the factory tinting, and I can go along with that and vote for that. But I'll never vote for blacked out windows like some of the taxi drivers want to. I know the chauffeur driven ones, that's an entirely different agreement we did have with them, didn't we? But the everyday taxis, I will only go along with the factory tinted. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, Mark 2.
Thank you. That helps us with the report, in-depth report, and the further work we put into it, it really explains more clearly. I think when he originally came to the committee, I think we were for tinted windows. What we didn't want is the blackout passenger. We want to stipulate that you can't have a blacked out windows and any, that we bring, you know, any taxis. You know, the point was people might just put film on the back and black them out. And really want to make sure that if they do that, that car won't be used as a taxi. But I think that's really, really clear that we, I think I will agree that 25%. I think most of the manufacturers and the Mercedes and Lexus, I mean, some I've seen a Lexus as a taxi. But if it's a taxi, if it's a battery tinted window throughout the car, the vehicle, I have no problem with it. So when you just make that plain that the tend to back out, they lose the license or whatever.
Matt, would you like to come back on?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it was that last comment that you said there, Councillor Williams. There's two issues there. So firstly, it's when the vehicles come in for their test, we would expect them to be factory fitted, not to have any aftermarket tint on. If they did, it would either need to be removed at that point and then tested again to make sure it's compliant with whatever the policy was at the time. If we found that a vehicle that had passed this test and then subsequently put some film on, gone for some sort of aftermarket tint, you'll be aware from the taxi policy and our enforcement policy, we've got a range of options available to us in speaking to that person, and it could be that officer deals with it by a matter of warning, or it could be that we bring it to the subcommittee for members to look at and make a decision on. So we have plenty of hours for compliance enforcement, and we will be checking people, not just on this, on other taxi matters throughout the course of their licence anyway. So yes, we have plenty of ability to look at people favourably if they breach the policy in this regard or any other.
Thank you.
Councillor Adcock.
Thank you. So a question on the table on 2.2. If we were to go with option B, which is setting the 18% of the 2% tolerance, there's a car on there which had a film fitted, which had a 16% light transmission. So even though it's got a aftermarket film on it, would that still pass if we were to go for option B rather than for option A?
No. If it had film fitted and with film fitted it was 16%, they still have to remove the film and then the window will allow the light through it, because you wouldn't have a film to something to try and light it. That makes sense. So I don't think we took a reading from that with film removed.
We did have a car the other day, fantastic, brand new car. It came in and it's got fairly fitted. So we subsequently failed the test. It went away. We presented it for test and it failed then. So 25%. Factory fitted. So what they do, factory fitted windows, the windows are then blocked out. So we choose some, there's no way to go back on.
But in your example, councillor, I got, no, it was, as it currently stands, it failed on 16 was the film on. If they'd removed that and it had been 35, it would have passed. If they removed it to 25, it still would have failed, subject to any changes that we make this evening.
Yeah, thank you. I just think it makes sense to have a look at the, just having factory fitted tinting windows and not have any aftermarket tinting on films at all.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I would agree with Councillor Volumes 1, Councillor Volumes 2 and Councillor Adcock. I think factory fitted to me makes sense. I wouldn't like somebody to buy a new Toyota, spend a lot of money, a taxi driver who lives in the borough and works in the borough, and then he finds he fails because he's 3% less. But I think the factory fitting I think makes sense. So I would kind of go with that one. Thanks.
Mr. Conlon, when this was discussed at subcommittee, there was a great deal of discussion in favour of factory fitted. And what we were looking at specifically was the safety aspect of lone female in the back of a car or lone vulnerable person, being male or female in the back of a car where the windows were excessively tinted. And I think at that time we were looking at the whole idea of just sticking to factory fitted because it gives them it also gives a defence to the taxi driver to say, this is how I bought it. It was considered safe at the time. And I don't think you can get around that. I would like to thank Matt because we did ask for extra information. And not only has he provided that, but he's also invited Mr. Cotton to come along and give expert advice, which I think has helped this committee enormously to make a decision. So perhaps if we look at the two recommendations, there's a recommendation A or recommendation B, if no one has any further comments or questions. Recommendation A, vehicles can only have factory fitting tinted privacy windows and not aftermarket tinting. Could we have a show of favour?
Can I move number 8?
A, yes, can we look at those in favour of A? Or B, having fitted rear passenger windows that are not heavily tinted or blacked out, allowing to 18% transmission of light compliant with regulations. Anyone in favour of that? Zero. That's, thank you very much. The final agenda item is item 8, minutes of the Public Protection Subcommittee meetings. Would anyone like to make a comment or propose that they be accepted?
Moving.
Thank you very much. Accepted. So it's 7:55, and I don't think there's any other. The closed agenda. There is no business being notified by myself as chair or the secretary for exempt or urgent business at 7:55. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.